Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Today, we talk about navigating the loss of loved ones. We explore losing people from our lives due to layoffs, transitioning or graduating from college, and moving to other cities. We then dive into losing people to death, finishing with a quick conversation or highlighting about living trust and other paperwork that helps and protects during those times. Let's get started.
I lost my brother.
Yeah.
I lost my brother when I was 28. Then I lost my dad. Then I lost my mom. And then in the last 3 months, I lost a best friend that we traveled for many years. I lost a niece, and then we lost Cynthia recently. And it doesn't get easier. And then you do what you just said. You kind of recalibrate. What is life all about? Da 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 da. And what do you need to do?
Exactly. And the topic for Cafecito Chats today is navigating the loss of a loved one is not necessarily all about death. It's about the stages of losing people, right? And if we can get started, thank you for joining Cafecito Chats. This is today's topic is navigating the loss of a loved one. And as I was trying to illustrate or describe, it's not just about death. It's about the process of losing people out of your life, right? As a young individual, when you're young, maybe you meet somebody, love of your life, first love, and all of a sudden it's a loss. And in that, in a sense, is also a hurting feeling, right? And we don't talk enough about how to cope with loss of an individual and how to prepare for that time and how to deal with that. And it's not just about losing people to an illness or anything like that. So I hope that makes sense. And also, it's the process of a mindset and what you're going through in that sense. And one of the hardest things, obviously, is death. But another loss is loss of a co-workers because of layoffs and what you're going through. So that's something that we also don't really talk too openly about. Yes, you lose your job, you lose going to your workplace, but at the same time, you had relationships with some of those people. When you go to work, you spend about 8 or 9 hours a day, and you see those people more than you end up seeing your own family for the most part. So that, in a sense, is loss of people in your life. So those are the different types of losses that I can see and capture at this point. And I want to see what your perspective is, and more importantly, how do you prepare for losing that? And one of the things that I'm going to ping Victor, and this is, I'm not honing on you, Victor, but you're one of the early or younger individuals in the chat at this point, and you recently graduated. So you are going through this. We were talking in another episode, and you're going through this phase of change, right? Because you have been used to the university system and your peers, your comrades, your club mates within the RPL team that you were in, and all of a sudden now it's your first summer, you're trying to find a job, obviously, but at the same time, you're going through this change and this loss of people in your life, right? Not that they are dead, but they are moving and they're going somewhere else. So how are you dealing with this at your level at this point, Victor?
Yeah, for sure. So, one of my best friends, we've basically taken every class together since like freshman year,
Mhm.
and he's going away for his master's degree in Stanford. So it's kind of bittersweet, like kind of having to let him go, but I do continue to see him like every week, and we do send messages here and there. So it's not kind of like the loss of a loved one, right, where you can't communicate with them anymore. But with some of my other friends, for example, it's like just trying to keep in touch with them whenever I can, or sometimes I may even forget, and then I just like see them pop up in a picture and then just send them a message here and there. So it's kind of hard to, I guess, be in contact with them sometimes.
Yeah, no, and that makes total sense. And those are just, those are friends, those are peers that you spent a lot of time with. Obviously, those are close connections, right? And you made bonds with them. And obviously, seeing them move on, you're happy, you're proud of them. But at the same time, it's like, man, okay, things are changing. My relationship with them, you don't want it to change because you hung out with them, you probably laughed with them, joked around. But from here on out, they're taking a different path. So they're, in that sense, being lost to you as a close connection in that sense. And that's what I meant early on by this topic. It's not just about losing people to death. It's how do we deal with this type of loss? And obviously, that's an important aspect. Mr. Mike Cruz, yes, sir?
Yeah, I'm just, you always bring back a lot of memories. So out of high school, I had a great high school year at Castle Park, and then graduated in June. But 1 September, I enlisted in the United States Air Force. So I left Chula Vista for the very first time on an airplane for the very first time, and ended up in Lackland Air Force Base in Texas in September, middle of summer. And I guess I think it's an attitude that you have about the people around you and the people that you've met and enjoyed life with. Um, I had some very close friends, but the new experience of just leaving everything was an opportunity to just experience. And so, so I didn't leave with doubt or regret. I was looking forward to
Hmm.
uh, a new life, in the Air Force for the next 4 years and meet new people. And we were lucky to have in our flight at the training camp about 60 trainees. We had half were from California, half from Florida, and we had fun with each other. So I think it's a attitude that you form at least by the time you graduate from high school. You have an out view on life on how you want to spend it. Do you want to depend on other people for happiness, or do you want to have it for yourself? I mean, you make your happiness. And so, all through my 4 years in the Air Force, I left home. I went to Vandenberg for a couple years and the Clark Air Base in the Philippines, and they're all experiences. I mean, you meet new people, you do new things, and I was always learning. I was always, I was taking college classes and trying to better myself and learn the technology that I was involved in. So I think, for the young people, it's an attitude. Yeah, you have friends, you want to cherish them, you want to keep in contact. And for me, like I only have one or two high school friends that I keep contact with. I mean that's how it's going to come out, is that your friends are going to go one way and another way, and you're going to go another way. And but you'll enjoy with what you do, and you'll make new friends. You'll make many new friends, and you make hopefully some you'll create new experiences. So leaving behind, I think, is an attitude. If you have deep sorrow, uh, I think you have to work on that and look forward and look at the positive outcome that the change will give you an opportunity to do. So it's an opportunity. I mean, change is uh, is inevitable. You're going to have it in your academic life, your married life, your work life. But I think for me, I embraced change to create new opportunities and experience new things. I never got sad about leaving, knowing that those that you leave behind were in good hands with themselves, and hopefully they would take care of them. So I think change is an attitude, but a loss of life is a different thing. I think loss of life, especially family, friends, siblings, that changes you forever, and that's a hard change, and that's something that you don't plan on. It comes, all of a sudden you get the phone call. I got the phone call from my brother one day, and I'm going, "What? Are you kidding me? that can't be true. You go through denial. So, when you talk about your stages, the first stage is denial. It didn't happen. It can't happen. And it does. And then you go through the stages of grief and then realization, et cetera, et cetera. So, loss of friends and changes, that's one thing. Loss of life, that's a hard change. Yeah, and that's something that's going to affect you. And that's going to test your philosophy about life. We had a close friend that she was a minister in the church, and she lost her son. And she says, it really tested my faith. What is life all about? Why did God take my son? It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. And so you're going to come into these opportunities and changes, significant changes, harsh changes, and you're going to have to find a way to deal with them. The first thing is you got to keep yourself mentally healthy, and make sure you don't get depressed to the point where you harm yourself or others. So and that's something that you can't prepare for. I mean, and the first time it happens, you don't know what to do. You do a lot of crying. You do a lot of sobbing. Why did this happen? Why me? Why my brother? Why my sister? My mom or dad or whatever. So, but like you said, it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
We're all going to go through it. So we're all going to uh, deal with it in our own ways. And I have family members that have lost their mates, et cetera, et cetera, and the family around them hopefully helps them go through tough times, but you still have to deal with it individually. So, a strong family uh, around you will help you in troubled times. But the bottom line is, mentally, you have to deal with it in your own way, and hopefully, um, you're strong enough and you can see beyond the current dilemma in life and move on. Because if you're young, you still got another 40, 50 years to worry about, not worry about, but to plan and to experience and et cetera, et cetera. And along the way, they will be difficult situations.
Thank you, Mr. Mike Cruz. And yeah, so death, as Mr. Mike Cruz said, is a whole different ballgame, right? You're never prepared. You're never really cope. Well, you're never really surely ready for those news, right? It could happen to anybody at any given day. Today we're here. Tomorrow we don't know. And that's something that we have to be aware of, right? So cherish today for sure, and cherish the people that you have around you for sure. Those friends, those loved ones, those brothers, sisters, parents, if you still have them, cherish them. One of the big things that I've noticed is the younger you are, the less impactful to some extent that you think of death. The older you start becoming, the more important of an aspect that it starts taking on you, and the more insight that you have in regards to, oh, okay, now the time that I actually spend with my friends, my family is cherished time because we have a limited resource. For example, Victor and Lourdes, you're the younger ones here. So I'm assuming that, death is something that you see, but you're thinking, oh, it's far away. I could be wrong. Maybe you experienced it already, but at this point, maybe you haven't. And for those young individuals that haven't, I'm pretty sure that you see it, you hear about it, and you're like, it's something that's abstract. It's something that's far away. But I want to get your take, Lourdes. How do you deal with loss of a loved one to death or to an illness? How do you deal with that? What advice would you give individuals?
Yeah, hi everybody. I mean, I guess I was very aware of death just because we lost my uncle when I was
Mm.
pretty young, like 10 or 11. And then so in my family we're very aware of like the quality time and the limited time in general.
Mhm.
And even now, we just had a few recent deaths. Like, literally, my brother-in-law's brother just passed away like 2 days ago, and
Mhm.
he's 30. Like, that's crazy. So
Mhm.
you're more reminded of quality time, doing things for now, and really prioritizing family and friends, and just processing that, life is not promised.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Thank you for sharing that. And sorry about your loss and your family's loss. It's always something. It's something. It's very difficult to actually verbalize, right? You try to empathize with the individuals, but sometimes it's difficult to know how to approach and what the right words are to say. So most people tend to say, I feel your sorrow, my condolences, and I hope that's taken well by everybody that you say it to. So Victor, any thoughts on how to deal with death and what you have experienced? You don't have to give us details, but do you have any insights or thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, for me, what helped me deal with, like, for example, the loss of my grandma when I was in high school. She was like very close to me. It's just kind of talking with, like my mom, my friends, just someone to get like my emotions out, just to make sure I'm kind of not internalizing all of that, which is like bad for your mental health, right? So that's really what helped me out the most, I would say. Just kind of talking with my friends, just to, this is something that is going to happen in life, and it's kind of the natural, like, way things go, but just somewhat be prepared for it and being able to have those conversations with other people.
Being able to talk and share your feelings and try to get that emotion expressed and not internalize it, correct? Yes. Mr. Mike Cruz. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got a lot of examples of
Yeah.
this in different situations. I was up at Naval Postgraduate School, the middle of my academic year there, and my dad passed away in May, and so I mean, the school was continuous for 18 months, 15 months, whatever it was. So there was no time off from school. I mean, when we left one quarter, you went right in, on Friday, and the next Monday, you're in the next quarter. So you didn't have any time off. And so when my dad passed away, I asked my advisor, says, um, when, my dad passed away, I got to go home. And he says, okay. And so I went home, and I guess I was home for like 3 days or 4 days, and went through the ceremony and all that. And I got back, and I had to go right back to school. And my advisor, I told my advisor what happened. He says, you know what? It's unfortunate, but you don't have time to grieve. And that kind of took me back. I didn't have time to grieve. I had to go right back into my studies and and finish up school unless I wanted to drop out, which to me was not a choice. So there may be times when you may not have time to grieve, and that was my experience, and I had to continue on, and that was it and when you're in school and like that, your mind has to go toward your studies, and it took away the grieving that I could have had for my dad. When my brother passed away, I had more time. I mean, I was there, and so I grieved a lot, maybe for 6 months. I was still going to state, driving home at night, and cry in my car, et cetera, et cetera. So there will be different scenarios for when things happen. So, like Victor, when my grandma passed away, I went to see her, and I remember her words. She says, "Mijo, I had a good life. Don't worry." And I'm going, "Whoa." Okay. She was like 90 something. She said, I had a good life. Don't worry. So there's going to be scenarios that are going to be different. You're going to handle them differently. You may have an opportunity of time to grieve, and maybe other times not. You may get pulled into the results of that passing in the family. Hey, we have to sell the house, or we have to take care of the kids, or all these things that need to be done that you may get pulled into, and not of your choosing. you may have to spend time or money or whatever to help out whoever the loss was, if it was a family member and you get pulled in. I know a lot of students when they lost a parent. Matter of fact, I have a friend when the mom died. He was the oldest son. He had a brother with type 1 diabetes. He had a dad that was out of work, and so he had just finished, and they put him through college, so he got his degree in civil electrical engineering. He had to turn around and take care of the whole family. And he's still doing that. I still see him every once in a while. I say, well, how are you doing? Well, I'm taking care of my brother and I'm taking care of my dad. And he never married. He
Mm.
never could do probably the things he wanted to do. So, I mean, that was, but he took on the burden. He thought it was his responsibility to take care of his brother and his dad. So that was the result of his mother passing. So there's going to be different scenarios that you may be affected, and you may be affected like him, totally. It determined the outcome of his life. He's probably in his late 30s now, and he's still uh, uh, dealing with that loss. And there may be other times you don't have to do as much, but be prepared. Uh, in your family and your friends and whatever, there's going to be different scenarios of grieving and of your physical and mental effort to accommodate the loss.
Yeah, yeah, that's great insight, great perspective. And then there's, as you mentioned, there's different levels of losses. Most people think, oh, the older individuals are the ones that tend to go and tend to die first. But there's also the sad reality that every once in a while, younger or children pass away. The younger individuals or children. So for the parents and or the older individuals in our society, sometimes I think that's a little harder because mentally we are kind of prepared and expecting the older person to pass away before the younger person. Not saying that that's correct, but that's more or less what I've seen in society, right? In our society right now. But for a parent to lose a child is probably hard and harder because you have all this expectation and hopes and of the future of what they will become, what they will achieve, what they will accomplish. And as an older individual, you can look back into your life and you can say, oh, at age 20, at age 15, I had so much and there's so much future ahead of you and there's so many experiences that you have not had that when that life is taken away from this earth, it's very difficult to assimilate to some extent. But then there's also the emotional attachment to that child, to that individual little person in your life. So that's very difficult. How do you deal with that, Mr. Mike Cruz? How do you advise people cope with that type of loss?
Well, it's an individual thing.
Mm.
And I'm going to sidetrack just for a second.
Yep.
Um, when we deal with loss, there's another aspect of that, and that's if you have a loved one or friend that that is hurting themselves. They're doing something that is damaging their body, their mind, or whatever.
Mm.
And so, and you can see, the potential outcome is probably, not living very long.
Hmm.
And so I think as an individual, uh, yeah, we need to look at passing of people. But if we see somebody that needs our assistance or help and that are hurting themselves, uh, there's an effort that you need to take. Uh, uh, and we're all going to experience it sooner or later. A friend, family, or whatever, help them out because I've seen that just too often recently that the younger people are doing things that are not good, or they may have a body part that is not functioning, and they know it, and it's a detriment, and they still keep on doing things to aggravate that. Especially the people that I know that have diabetes. They say, "Oh, it doesn't bother me." Well, it does. So do that. So what was the question again?
The question is, how do you propose, or what would you suggest parents do when a child or a younger person in their family passes away, and you have this emotional attachment to that young individual because you know that there's so much future ahead that they have already lost because of their demise at an early age?
I think the best response to that. I read an article on somebody that just lost his or her daughter or son, and the response of that person was, God gave me this child for 7 wonderful years. I will remember those. Those are the things that I will cherish. That's what I have. And knowing that I don't have that anymore, I go back to those 7 years. So I think it's a remembrance of the good times of experiences. And I think most parents will probably say that, hey, remember the good times that we had. And even though they were short lived, we got to enjoy them for that period of time. I think it's hard. I mean, how do you explain to another sibling that your brother or sister has gone away and is not coming back? Uh, at that time, somebody may be real religious and rely on their religious beliefs to help them through the losses.
Mhm.
Other ones could be more pragmatic about, hey, we had a good time with our sibling, and let's remember it that way. Uh, I have one cousin that she goes to the cemetery regularly for past people, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, whatever. It's just something that she does to deal with that. But that's a hard one, when you really think about it, Lazo. How does a parent tell a sibling or somebody that you lost somebody that young? Uh, but it's not uncommon. I mean, we have childhood diseases that take young people all the time,
Yeah,
and they have to deal with it, and it's very burdensome.
yeah,
Uh, but believe it or not, I'm just going to say something here about when somebody passes. If you had to deal with that person and help them out for a long, long time, like I helped my mother out for years, trying to keep her uh, well. She had diabetes, she had her leg amputated. We went through all of that, and to me, it was physically and mentally draining. But when she passed, I can't explain it, but there was a shedding of dependence. No, not guilt, but there was a feeling of loss, yes, but also that I don't have to deal with this anymore.
mhm.
She's in a better place,
So,
and being here on Earth, it was a tough ride. It was very, very, very tough. But when she left, I felt relieved. That's the word I was going to say. There was a relief. It wasn't happiness. It was a relief from the burden, knowing that she was in a better place and she didn't have to suffer anymore. So we're all gonna, I mean, these are all. I mean, I've gone through many of these instances in different scenarios. So uh, we're all going to be there. And the thing is like I said before, you have to have a strong mental constitution that you need to develop as a young person.
yeah,
So when these things happen, your mental abilities can cope with that. You don't go high right or high left and blame somebody. You can't blame anybody when somebody passes, unless there's a real somebody to blame. But generally, it's not a realistic blame. Uh, Even recently, with our dealing with our friend, there was blaming going on, and I'm going, that's crazy.
yeah,
This person passed because of this. You can't blame somebody for, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. And this is when family issues get to be very,
yeah,
very touchy, and people get very high strung, and they want to lash out. Well, if somebody does lash out at you or somebody in a passing of someone, uh, be mindful that they're lashing out because they're mad at the world. They're not mad at you. They're just they have this is the way they're dealing with it, and if some way that you can help them cope, do that. So you're going to have some of that. You're going to have. It's not. Sometimes the transition is not going to be easy. It's going to be very quote sometimes vengeful, blaming, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of times families get torn apart
Yeah.
because of that. So hopefully you'll be strong, have your mental capacity developed that you can handle that, and you know that passing is a thing. It's not fair. I keep telling people, the world is not fair. It's we're going to have good times, but we're going to have some tough times. So I think develop your mental capacity to deal with adversity, and it's not just the loss of a loved one, but adversity in the workplace, adversity in the family. So all the situations that you're involved in, if you can deal with adversity in a sensible and sane way, you're going to be a better person. And so that's your mental constitution has to be developed to be able to handle that. So that poses the question: how do you do that? How do you learn that? Um, I don't know. I think it's just that your experiences and how you deal with them as a person, and hopefully somebody can help you. Maybe talk about those mental strengths that you need, mental capacities that you have. Uh, I think I developed them on my own, and just being around the people that were positive helped me along the way. So work on that mental capacity to deal with adversity. I think will help in many ways.
Yeah, dealing with adversity is some mental constitution, right? You can either let the problem consume you, or you tackle on the problem and find a solution. So that's a good advice and good mindset to go ahead and continue moving forward. Lourdes, you had your hand up earlier. I don't know if you remember your question, comment.
Yeah, I had a question with Mike. Did you ever, like, if you found yourself in a situation where you lost somebody, like, not avoid the problem, but since you couldn't grieve, like you said in school, did you ever threw yourself into work, not as a distraction, but kind of like just being like, this is what I got to do right now, and kind of avoid everything else?
Yeah, well, that was my situation at grad school. I didn't have the opportunity to grieve, and that was kind of like an awareness that I didn't have until somebody told me, and that happens in my life many times. Somebody tells me something, I go, "Oh yeah, okay, well that's the way it is." Yeah, I was told I couldn't grieve, and I was in the middle of studies, and I had my family with me, and we're away from home. So I mean, I wasn't back in San Diego. I was up there in Monterey. Um, uh, that is an option. If you have the opportunity to throw yourself into some other activity, I would say, but with sanity. You have to do it with sanity. Just like I was telling Lazo after these deaths the last couple of months, I said I need to get on my bike and ride, because that gives me some solitude, some time to think about it. And when I'm writing, I don't have to think about that, but every once in a while I did think about it. So yeah, throwing yourself, but not throwing yourself, but engaging yourself in some activity that will take your mind off the loss. But remembering that there will be times, even during the your effort to uh, uh, put your mind in a different place, just like I'm going through right now today. Every once in a while, you get that little sense of loss.
Yeah.
It's there. It's not going to go away, and it's not a happy feeling. And it's something that I'm kind of dealing with right now. And so, uh, yes, it's a it's a facade, if you will, to do something else, to forget about your grieving. But do grieve. Take time to grieve. You don't have to be grieving during your work hours. When you get home and the drive home or whatever. I did a lot of grieving when I lost my brother, when I was driving home from San Diego State at night, and I just sit there and cry and do what I needed to do. But throwing yourself into something else is only a panacea. It does work for a while. It will help you to negotiate the loss, but again, grieve. Do that. Don't grieve, but grieve. and it'll help you get through it, because after a while, you will tire of the grieving, I believe, because it just takes so much out of you. But once you've done it and you say, okay, I've done it, I need to move on. That's a decision you have to make.
Thank you, sir. Does that hopefully that answers the question, Lourdes? And then we have Leo Soto. Thank you for joining us, and Mindy as well. Both of you are working individuals. You're middle age, or I hope I can say that, and you don't get offended. You're middle age, mid career level individuals. So hence you're very busy, right? So how do you deal? And this is making a little bit of parentheses, because when you're working, we heard Mr. Mike Cruz say that he lost his dad and he was doing grad school, and he took 2 or 3 days from school from that quarter and came back directly into the middle of whatever the world was doing for him at that time. We, as an industry employee, have bereavement leave, which is they give you a couple of days, but you don't have indefinite time to go ahead and grieve, right? So going back to Mr. Mike Cruz, you grieve a little bit, but you have to carry on. The world keeps on spinning. How do you deal with this, Leo? How do you deal with this type of situation when there's a loss in the family due to death in this particular case, right? And you, as a working individual, are probably thinking, oh man, I only have 3 or 4 days. What do I do? How do I cope with this? What's my coping mechanism? Because this is a reality of life where you don't have indefinite time to grieve. Leo?
Hey, Lars. Thanks for having us again. And I'm only slightly offended by the mid-age
No, I'm
comment.
sorry,
So,
man.
no. All right. But dealing with loss, being in a working environment, I'm going to speak to from personal experience. It was just over 5 years ago I lost my dad. And, this was the very early onset of the pandemic in which we started working from home. And, we only get a limited amount of time of bereavement leave here at my company. And so I took longer. I took personal time off because I'm just not ready to come back. And in my case, may have been a little different. It wasn't necessarily because I was feeling some kind of way just yet, but I flew home to Jersey to be with my mother and my sister, and there was just a ton of help that they needed around the house. So it was more so, hey, with my dad not being there, A, B, and C need to be done, and I need to be there for them as much as I possibly could. So I just made a decision. I'm going to take that extra time off, that personal time off that is available. I pretty much let my team know, hey, I'm going to be gone extensively. I don't know when I'm going to come back. But it ended up being only 2 weeks. And the primary reason for just only 2 weeks was because once I finished helping with whatever task needed to be helped with, I kind of found myself alone and dwelling in my own thoughts, and it just really wasn't healthy. You heard Mike alluded to just a few minutes ago how, utilize kind of like tasks or activities or engagements in which you're able to, even if it's momentarily, distract yourself for the time being. And I like to say that did help. And it's not so much as a distraction as a realization that, hey, I need to keep going forward with my life, because I knew that's something my dad would have been adamant about. Hey, keep going. Your life continues. Mourn me if you need to, but keep on pushing forward, right? And so it was more about just finding a path forward, just to keep going. And even if it's momentarily, you're gonna have your thoughts. You're gonna have those moments of grief where maybe you're working a few hours and all of a sudden the thoughts dwell up, and you just say, I stepped away from my computer. I did what I had to do there, whether I broke down for a few, but you just push through. You keep making progress forward. And as Mike alluded to, the pain doesn't go away ever. It's always there. You just learn how to live with it. You learn to grow with it, grow outside of it. To this day, I still mourn the loss of my dad at any moment. I can break down right now talking about him, but I know that he would want me to move forward, and that's what I'm doing. I'm living the best life I possibly can, because that's how I honor my dad, by living my life as he would have wanted me to in terms of moving forward. So Your work will be there. Thankfully, I had supportive management who just say, hey, take the time you need, let us know when you'll be back. And I did just that. So this is one of those instances where family came first and I was able to do that. And my leadership was more than accommodating to it.
Thank you, Leo. Great insight, great perspective. And the reason we bring topics like this is because they're real, and we don't really talk too much about it. And there's really no guidebook that gives you some of that insight. And I wanted to bring this topic to the table just for awareness of everybody, right? Dealing with the loss, not just in death, but loss of people, loss of individuals, and making sure that we talked about this and had some thoughts in the matter. Mindy, same question for you. As a working individual, how do you deal with a loss, or what insights can you share with us?
I'll actually tackle this from a couple of different, not just from loss, but other things that come up in life. So, unfortunately, I've dealt with a lot of loss. I've lost my mom to cancer. I lost my brother during COVID. And I also gave birth to my son during college. And so, the biggest takeaway that I've learned from a lot of these experiences is be transparent in your communication. A lot of times when we're experiencing pain, or especially if we have a parent, a loved one going through a difficult medical diagnosis, or we might ourselves might be going through a difficult medical diagnosis, be transparent. Try not to fall off the map. I think we see this especially even in like our nonprofit world, where we'll see volunteers just fall off the map. Just communicate. I can no longer keep this commitment anymore. Understand what your priorities are, but just communicate of, hey, I'm going through a difficult time. I might need a little more time on this project. You find that most people are more than willing to accommodate, and they're usually just wanting to make sure they're meeting their work deadlines too. So if you're going to be out of office, they just want to make sure they have backup coverage. It's not about you not doing your job. It's about making sure the coverage for the right things are in place while you're taking the time that you need. And also going with that, kind of on the school and work front, know what your rights and benefits are, because that can differ to some extent between schools and even workplaces. A lot of things are really common from a federal perspective, but know what you're at that. Or every company has different bereavement policies. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of different personal time. Know what they are. Talk with your managers in the school environment. So I gave birth to my son in college. I actually was in the middle of an electrical engineering exam and started labor. I finished my exam and just went to the hospital right after that. I actually had a professor try to fail me for not making an exam because I had more time to study while I was in the hospital. So I actually had to go to my Title IX office. And even as a student, you do have some rights for specific situations, whether it's family, FMLA, because guess what? Loss is covered under FMLA, even at a university level. So you have rights as a student to postpone work as needed and things like that. And it's typically your Title IX office that deals with that. And so I just want to bring awareness to that. And it can apply to, like I said, in that case, it was a more happy experience, not trying to deal with a professor trying to fail me because I couldn't show up to the exam because I was in the hospital for a different exam. But know that you have rights for a lot of these different types of situations. At work, there's a lot of employee, so I said EAP, so employee assistance programs. So a lot of them provide free counseling for a couple of sessions, especially for times of loss or doing medical complications. And take the time to process. I've unfortunately dealt with a lot of loss. When I lost my brother, um, I actually threw myself into work. When I lost my mom, I quit my job and moved states to come living in Colorado to come back to New Mexico because my dad is 83 years old, and so I know I have limited time with him. So I completely uprooted my life during that time and really analyzed what I wanted. So people have different priorities. Figure out what that is for you. Know that there's a lot of benefits and resources and rights depending what your situation is, and try to communicate as much as possible. You don't have to share all the personal details, but let those around you know so they can make sure they're not missing their deadlines. It's just kind of that professional respect of, hey, need to coverage during this. I'm not going to be able to do this. And more often than not, people are really understanding. But if they don't know what's going on and you just kind of stop responding to emails, they don't know why you're not responding. They don't know if it's just because you've left work and for no reason. They don't know. So just communicating you may need coverage can be really helpful.
That's great insight. That's a lot in there that I need to unpackage a little bit. For the Title IX, as a student in a university, most universities probably utilize that. So how would a student or individual actually go about starting the conversation? Do they go to the admissions office? Do they go to
There's
the...
a type, most schools, as long as they're a public university, like private might be the one case where things might be done a little differently.
Mhm.
But most universities have a Title IX office specifically. And when I brought that, I ended up going to the office and they're like, so for anyone who doesn't know, I went to Penn State during everything with Joe Paterno, and the fact that I might have had a legal case for a professor, they immediately reached out to that professor and were like, you are illegally doing something by not allowing the student to take the exam. And so they will work with you, and they are typically trying to make sure they are covered. So they tend to be more student supportive than staff supportive in that respect, because they're typically very lawsuit averse, and that's what they're trying to avoid.
Mhm.
So they're going to try to be on your side in most cases.
Okay. Okay, great. And for the employee assistance program, you mentioned, and that's available at different capacities, at different levels, within different companies and industries, right? So each person has to go back to their HR or their employee hand manual, their employee website, and make sure that you understand, one, how many days of bereavement you actually have, going back to Leo's comment, right? And understand what that is. California has a certain amount that they give you, and Colorado and other states probably have a certain amount that they give you. There's a federal mandate, federal limit that is at the national level at a minimum what you should be getting. So make sure that you know what that is and you know your rights, and how to report and how to actually utilize those, not over taking advantage of, but utilize them correctly, right? For your personal sanity. Also, the employee assistance program, where there's free counseling sessions. Know how to contact those counselors if you need those resources. If those resources are something that you don't feel comfortable using, you don't have to utilize them. Find a group that is allowing you to share your emotions, talk openly, freely. And it could be a religious group, it could be a biking group, it could be a running group, it could be a group that is doing something good for you. If you see yourself for some reason falling into this pattern of self destruction because of your coping mechanism is trying to deal with this loss, you might need additional professional help in that regard. And I'm referring to drinking excessively. If you're not a drinker, using drugs or doing something, as Mr. Mike Cruz alluded to, hurting your body in some sort of way, form, or shape because you feel that you could possibly do something more to help the individual or to cope with that loss, make sure that you seek out help, or if somebody offers help, that you at least listen and are open to listening, right? This is real information, and it gets a little bit raw to some extent, but it's something that we normally don't tackle. Mr. Mike Cruz, your hand is up. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you hit a current situation. The family needs help,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I'm talking to an individual, says, social services.
Mm-hmm.
Social services are available at the county, state, city level, and maybe even at the national level. So seek out if there are some social services available to you. They can provide professional help. They can probably also guide you to financial, to help you with, say you have financial problems, for financial stability, maybe some childcare services affordable, depending upon your financial status. So I think social services is something that we don't think about, like you say. Who uses that? Well, they're there, and they're there to help you through adversity. So I think you're right. Seek professional assistance if and when needed. Certainly, families can help out initially, but again, if you have some financial burdens or other issues, uh, seek out some professional social services.
And before we close it out, we talked about the emotional aspect, the physical aspect of passing and losing people, but then there's the paperwork that actually helps and supports. That's something that we need to be aware of, and we can bring this at a later topic to go further in depth. But I'll touch on it here, and I'll get Leo and Mike Cruz and Mindy's perspective on this. So you need a living trust, right? And you also need a will, and you also need a primary health care directive, and you also need additional preparations for, God forbid, that you're passing away and all of a sudden you don't have either a cremation plan or a burial plan set up, and you are also financially burdened with all of those situations. So I'm going to tap Leo first, and then we'll go to Mindy and Mike. Leo?
All right. So, are you asking in terms of what I'm doing to prepare? Or
Yes.
what has been? Okay. All right. Now, great question. And a lot of this comes from lessons learned again. One of the things when my father passed that we found out was that he was the most disorganized person in the world. Accounts spread out everywhere for we don't know what reason.
Yeah.
Nothing,
It's
no
because
paperwork.
they gave him a great APY and he took it.
Exactly. And so, one of the lessons learned was, I mean, you hit all the spots, things would have been simplified with the will, trust, et cetera. But one of the things that I've also picked up on that I've actually engaged with now is what they call a death box. It's essentially a list of paperwork of all your accounts, your passwords, and beneficiary information all wrapped in one. So that way, should something happen to you, it's a little easier for your loved ones to pick up, like, oh, this is everything they had. I've done that more recently when my dad passed. That's when I did it for myself because I know, like, I'm more financially like in a healthy position right now than my any of my loved ones would be currently are. So I kind of I have all this wrapped up for them, ready to go, and they know what to do. And I've shared this information out with my mother, sister, and my girlfriend right now. So kind of just leave all this information readily available, as efficient as possible. Should something happen to me, everything is there, everything is ready. It's not you don't want to think about, hey, I want to die, but should something happen, because you never know what can happen, right? And so should an emergency happen where I'm no longer available, hey, here's all the financial items, anything under my name, property that I own. Here's everything you need, along with the phone numbers and passwords of everything you need to gain access to that. So that way you have everything ready to go. So you're not there searching and taking days, if not weeks, to find all this information.
Yeah. Thank you, Leo. Great insight, great perspective. And then Mindy, team trust over a will. So can you walk us through that comment?
So there's a lot of different ways to set things up, and there's like a lot of advice I give, especially just recently graduated folks, that they don't realize implications financially of the differences between the two. So a will, you're going to have probably some capital gains associated with that, more so than a trust would. So that means paying additional taxes on potentially whatever estate is left with that. One of the things, when my mom passes, I'm on all of my dad's accounts now. So that way I'm an account user. It's not him gifting me or me inheriting that account. It's I'm on the account. I'm a joint co-owner of that account, to alleviate a lot of those pain points financially, that as you fill out paperwork, and you do your taxes at the end of the year, you're inheriting potentially different things. And so a trust really keeps active with all of that. You can use your trust in lieu of constantly naming different beneficiaries. So you're putting it all in one location rather than having to fill it out in like 18 different forms across various insurances you may have. So it kind of says, look at this trust. And so it's easier to keep one document up to date rather than all of your documents up to date with your various beneficiaries. And then it does help with it finances better than a will does. There's less, especially when it comes to like a house in particular, there's less work in a trust than a will in terms of getting that asset transferred. So it helps there in particular as well.
Awesome.
I
Thank
still
you.
have a will because it kind of is my catch-all in case I forgot something, but we really did a lot of in-depth work on getting our trust set up. And especially since we do have my dad on our property, we make sure we have it so it transitions nicely over to just my name when that time does eventually come. But as long as you can trust who you're with, like we put our names on all of our financial accounts with both of our parents, because it just alleviates a lot of that. And we have my mother-in-law going through Alzheimer's, and so she's forgetting to make payments. So we're able to monitor her banking to make sure she's making the right payments on things as well. So there's multiple benefits to that aspect, but lots of paperwork, so much paperwork, so many documents.
Okay. Thank you, Mindy. Great insight. There's a lot to unravel on that one. But yes, at least in California, I'm assuming it's the same in Colorado. If you don't have a living trust and you have a property that you inherit, it could go to probate, and any financials tied to that property are frozen until you, the inheritor, pay those taxes and or fees to the attorney. So if you have a living trust, it makes it a lot easier. It doesn't really go to a probate court. So make sure that you get that living trust in order. So my wife and I are actually thinking and working towards that effort. So, I'm delinquent on it myself, but I'm giving you the advice. Don't be like me. So, Mr. Mike Cruz, insights, perspectives.
Yeah, for two things. I have a trust for my family. We've had it for maybe 10, 15 years already, and it costs some money. We paid, I think, initially $3,000 to $4,000 to get the trust going. We've modified it several times based upon the people that we had in the trust. Our family members that we had as survivors, they pass away. So that means you have to take them out and put the new people in or whatever. So and make the trust out. It costs a little bit of money. Think about what you want to do with all your assets. And so yeah, right now we haven't. My daughter is the trustee, and we don't have her on our accounts yet because there's one issue, Mindy. When you're on your account with your parents, you can do anything you want to. If you want to abscond the rest of them, you can do that. So there's a liability. So be aware of who you put on the trust and in the bank accounts. That's what I'm referring to. Bank accounts. If your name is on there and you have access to the bank account, that means that person can do the same thing that you would do. Okay, so I have my trust set up. Who's going to go to, and if nobody's alive at that time, we have them going to the cat fund and the ship. So the last things on our trust, if nobody's there, we define the assets would go to those two institutions. So I mean that's when you got rid of family. Okay, that's one thing. So when my mom was sick with diabetes, type 1 diabetes, I made her fill out a trust. She goes, "What do I need one for?" I says, "Mom, I don't want to go through this, whatever." So in your trust, if you get a full trust and get a good lawyer to do it, you're going to have a will inside the trust. You're going to have a DNR inside the trust, which is your medical, do not resuscitate thing. And then so you got your will, you got your DNR, and then you have your distribution of assets. Everybody's on the asset line. So you have all those elements need to be in there. So when they say get a simple trust for $99, beware. You want to be able to have all that stuff in there, the will, the medical stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so the trust is great. Here's a problem. An unexpected passing. and I've experienced two of them recently, where when that person either passed or became incapacitated, and they didn't have a trust, then you hit your head on the wall because they didn't have access. The other partner did not have access to the bank accounts. They did not. The one partner was going to retire, and that person couldn't sign the retirement papers, and so he had to get power of attorney, and that took forever. You know why? So if you don't have a trust, there's and you have financial separates, it's going to become a real headache, and you may be in a financial dilemma. So as you plan your future, the unexpected ones are the toughest ones, because a lot of, if you don't have a trust, then you're going to get into a lot of financial quote difficulties, property, bank accounts, assets that you may or may not be able to get to. And even my one friend had a retirement. She passed at 55, and she was going to retire within like months, and they couldn't get the retirement papers because she couldn't sign anything, and the husband didn't have any power of attorney over that. So there are issues that you'll be confronted, but the trust is far better than a will. There's no probate. When we had to expedite my mom's trust, we just went to the lawyer, and the lawyer says, okay, you have 3 people on the trust, equally distributed, which I told my mom. My mom initially wanted me to be the sole heir of the trust. Don't do that. Don't do that, because if you have other siblings, it's not going to go well. So I said to my mom, no, each one of her living children will be equally distributed. And so that just clarified everything. So when it came time to distribute assets, and we had to sell our house and we had money in the bank, I just wrote out 3 checks, and it went very smoothly. The other thing is when you expedite a trust and assets for a loved one, don't spend all the money. The lawyer said keep in. For us, it was 10,000. You might want to keep in 10 or 20,000 in the bank account, and for the person that passed away, because you may have some liabilities that are undetermined at the time of passing. So give it, and I think we had to keep that money in there for 3 to 5 years in that account, in case anything came up, we could pay the liabilities with those resources, and it didn't impact the families. So there's a couple of things. That's what I like to pass on to you, 'cause that's what I experienced. The trust is something you need to get your family together and sit down and decide. If you have brothers and sisters involved, tell them what you're going to do. And the other thing is, we shared copies of our trust with our daughter, because she's the trustee. Let them know what's in the trust.
Yeah.
And hopefully you can trust them not to expedite, if they're on the bank accounts and all that stuff, to expedite some of those things on their own behalf, because you don't want that to happen. I think that's it.
Thank you, sir. Great insight, great perspective. So, we're pretty much out of time, but I just wanted to make sure that we touched on this topic and we made sure that we brought awareness to this topic. Difficult situations, how to navigate losing a loved one, be it a relationship, be it work, be it a personal, a relative, individual in your family that has passed away. And then briefly, we touched on some of the actual documentation that you need to be aware of. We'll definitely bring a more in-depth topic at a later date on living trust, wills, and or powers of attorney, as well as health prime directives. So that's a very important conversation that we need to be aware of as well. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you for joining Cafecito Chats. We'll see you next time. Hasta luego. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining. See you next time.